Alright, let's go ahead and get started here. Welcome to the stream, guys. My name is Ben. One second here. Hide that. My name's Ben, or you can call me Follygon, I guess. I don't really care. Either way. Welcome to the stream. I'm gonna take our hand that we created in our last stream, if you were here for that. What's going on here? Body colors on this stuff. There we go. So I'm going to take the hand that we sculpted during our last live stream. It's still kind of in a block out phase. We're going to take that and duplicate it, mirror it, throw it up here, and then begin posing it more to fit our character's right hand. So that's what we're going to be doing during the stream. If we have any additional time, I'll probably take a look at some parts on the body, maybe a little bit on the face. And of course, if you guys have any questions, feel free to throw them in the chat, and I'll do my best to answer them. Other than that, this is a concept by artist D Dino. There's a link down to their work in the description for this stream. Go check them out. Give them a follow on ArtStation. Great artist. Really cool work. Some really cool stuff, which is why I'm working on this. Other than that, the last thing before we get started, if you like the free stuff that I do, if you like the live stream or anything, and you're interested in some more blah 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 quality content, go check out my Gumroad. I got my newest course on there. I'm working on another one, and I got some brushes and materials and some other stuff on there as well. And there's a link to that down in the description if that interests you. I'd appreciate it if you'd check it out at least. And with that all out of the way, let's get started. One thing that has been kind of bothering me, just really quick here, this shadow, the way this is kind of hitting. I would like to take one quick look at this, and then we can mirror our hand over and get started on that. Plus, it'll give us some time to let some more people pop in here, and maybe make a couple tweaks. So, the shadow that I'm getting here is, maybe you guys can't see it super well with that material. I can undo. This doesn't look super great right around here. I'm not liking that. Not liking that transition. So I want to kind of tighten that up just a little bit here. And there are a few different ways that we can do that. I more so just want to come through here with a pretty light stroke. This brush is pretty much a pinch brush, combination of the pinch brush and the dam standard. You can get it on Pixelogic's website for free. So I'm trying to use a little bit of a larger stroke and a lighter Z intensity here to get the effect that I'm looking for. Now, kind of after getting that plane change in there, you can see this kind of line here in the shadow. We want to now smooth that area out. So we've kind of got a nice plane break going here. You can see that it's a little bit on this side here too. So we just want to kind of smooth some of that out, get rid of it completely. And then where we have this really nice transitional line, can try to mask that off a little bit, and then smooth out this hard transition that we're seeing on the deltoid that we don't want. So that line right there. Pretty subtle, but it's definitely going to be visible depending on, you know, what view we render this from, the light setup, everything else. So it's best, you know, just to have your form controlled as much as you can and avoid those kind of pesky, dirty areas as much as you can. A little cleanup there. Also, let me know if you guys can hear me. Black Fang, what's going on, dude? Let me know if you guys can hear me and my music. In terms of audio levels there, I don't want the music to be super loud. During our last stream or two, I forgot to set up my audio correctly. But now I think I have it. I have the audio tracks set up correctly now. You can't stream with OBS with multiple audio tracks, unfortunately. and I had my OBS set up for recording as I was working on my my newest course here. So let's get into our thingies, our hand, and duplicate that over, mirror it, and then get to work. So base hand, if you guys were here for the last stream, essentially the process for sculpting was, you know, create the palm, create the block out for that. Definitely some dirty stuff going on here. The bottom side, it doesn't really matter for this hand in particular because it'll never be seen. On the other hand, it will in fact be seen as it is facing the camera. This is facing the ground, so not a big deal, but I am going to be duplicating it over, so we might as well clean it up just a tad. But the basic process for sculpting, again, we started with our palm here, our palm shape, created a bit of a wedge, attached our wrist from our body onto that just so that we can get a nice merge and transition there. There's actually some pretty funky stuff going on here, so I might want to level that out a little bit better. We'll play with that more. From there, creating our thumb, merging that in, dynameshing, adjusting all of our shapes at a pretty low res. Same thing with the finger, except we just took our main finger and duplicated it across multiple times, trying to get that kind of Spider-Man-y pose, hero's pose of a little bit of, we want most of the weight kind of on the fingers, a little bit there. And I think it's pretty close. It definitely needs some tweaking, but I don't want to get this hand any further before we do something with this hand, which is just kind of a block out up there, way not as far along as this guy here. So let's duplicate our hand, move it up, and I am just going to click delete lower and do a mirror across to the other side. And then from there we can also reconstruct our subdivs, grab those back, and then start rotating into position here. Audio's good? Awesome, thank you guys, appreciate it. And welcome everybody else that's kind of just popping in here. Streaming, trying to stream at a little bit of a different time than yesterday, so we can maybe get some new faces in here, people that normally can't make it earlier in the day or late at night. I know everybody else is in different time zones, just kind of depends. But let's see, how do I want to do this? Probably just toggle off everything except for these two and then kind of realign my palm with that one. I'm just using the transpose line here, kind of my preferred method. There's also the 3D gizmo if you like working with this. I kind of prefer the transpose master over this, but this is nice too. It's just nice to be able to create a line exactly where you want it and maybe like rotate around that. Gives you a lot of control, and there's actually some really cool stuff that you can do with the transpose line in terms of stretching, clipping, all sorts of nifty little hacks. So I think that's kind of a good enough for our initial position. I'm just going to delete that hand, get rid of that completely, turn on our body, and align that a little bit better. You can see here that there's obviously some stuff that we're going to have to tweak and change. Just because we're duplicating this from the other hand, there's definitely some stuff that's not correct. So I do have some polygroups here. It'll make tweaking some of this a little bit easier on me, but there's obviously going to be some resculpting that we're going to have to do, just because we're going to dirty this stuff up. I actually want to change the rotation of my arm, I think, quite a bit, just to actually make this kind of hand position possible. I think our arm's going to have to do quite a bit of rotating. So, in terms of the actual, let's do this. Opacity down, and move this over. So in terms of the actual kind of posed position here, and that's not the right scale, I can try to scale that up. The hand and arm are in the about the right position. I think getting a little bit more rotation on that arm will keep it on the same line, but move it a little bit closer to camera, so it'll be a little foreshortened, as well as just making this connection be able to actually work here a little bit better. So we'll do that, and I think that'll put us in a little bit of a better place. Black Fang Wolf, are you using a PNG for Spotlight here? I am not using a PNG. This is, let me show you. Oh, you know what? I think I have it. So this is just really easy to do in Photoshop, or whatever else you want to use. If you save an image like this out as a PSD and then import it into ZBrush into your texture palette, so texture, import, and then click on add to spotlight, ZBrush recognizes black as being transparent, so it doesn't have to be a PNG. ZBrush actually works a lot better with PSDs a lot of the time. Let me see. I can't remember. Yeah, so it's intensity. So you can see that black right there actually. So by using this intensity slider, you can actually use it to hide part of your image, namely black, because it recognizes that as transparent. But if you push it a little too far, obviously, it starts to disappear. So you got to find the sweet spot, and then after you get that, you can kind of. What I recommend doing is set up your set up your image. Make sure you toggle off intensity. Once you get that in place, get it exactly where you want it, and then go to Texture, Save Spotlight. And then next time you hop into ZBrush, you can just go to Load Spotlight, load up your image, and it'll be there for you. So I've kind of found the sweet spot for that, for opacity and everything else. So works for me, and I just have it saved out. And I have one saved for just the face as well when I was working on that, which I have not showed during this stream, so we might as well pull it up here really fast so people that are just popping in can see. Wrong material. Here we go. So this face, I think I did a majority of this on stream. I definitely worked on this on stream. But yeah, if you guys have any questions about this as well, feel free to shout them out, but we will go back to our arm and hand if not. So let's go on back here. Body, hand, wrong hand. I want this one. Alright, let's get a little bit more rotation here. There's a lot of, I have a lot of issues with kind of this area of my sculpt, and I just haven't, gone back through and cleaned it up as much as it needs to be. It definitely needs some work though. Just got out of teaching my intro to graphics class. Sounds like fun. Welcome to the stream. Welcome back, I should say. Sorry I missed your message there. Never use a PSD. Nice tip. Absolutely, not a problem, dude. Glad to have you with us. Let's see. So let's just use our transpose line here. Control, click, and drag. Get a little bit of a mask. Soften that mask. And let's throw our transpose line right down the middle of this arm. Kind of move it, get into position. I'm going to turn off perspective, just a little bit easier to do this kind of stuff with it off. And use my pen here, a little bit easier. And just start to get some more rotation in here. So I want to rotate the wrist, or I'm sorry, the entire arm up. So this kind of rotation here, it's not happening obviously in the wrist. It's happening up in your shoulder girdle region. And it's a very complex area, and a lot of stuff is at work there. And that's why I have not done a ton of sculpting to this region. Because as I change this stuff, I'm going to have to re-sculpt a lot of that. So I've kept it pretty simplified at this point, and I'll be making some more changes as we go. Let's try to rotate find that hand. We might have to make some slight tweaks there. So we're just kind of trying to play around here. Step back real quick. Find that angle. I think we're still pretty good now that we've rotated forward and bent the arm a little bit more, a little over a 90 ever so slightly. I'm just going to turn off everything except for our body and hand, and now we can kind of begin setting this up. There's a lot of junk going on here. I'm just going to solo that, duplicate you. I want just this portion of the wrist. And then I'm going to click on delete hidden, make sure that my polygroups are gone, or I'm sorry, subdivs are gone, and then we can merge this into our hand as well. Alright, so we got a lot of stuff that's going to have to change with this hand, and let's start with getting some of this rotation better. The hand can definitely, you know, have some tilt in the wrist. I can't do it if I pronate my arm, but you can have a little bit of some, you know, back and forth there. Not to this degree, so obviously we're gonna have to change that. Play with our hand position. I do want the angle to be about the same for this hand. So I am, for reference, what I'm looking at is the bottom of the palm to kind of try to line that up. You could also use the fingers. There's, I mean, this image is pushed really far, so it's kind of hard to, you know, look at a lot of this stuff anatomically and use it as a reference. But at the same time, I do want to hold as true to the concept as I can. So I just want to make sure that I'm kind of getting a lot of these angles correct, proportions. A lot of these stuff in the low res needs to be right so that we can move forward confidently. Someone's name, who I cannot read because it's got all sorts of funky characters, says, "Hello, nice stream. What perspective settings are you using?" I can show you here in just a second. And what keystrokes do you press to soften your mask or feather it out? There is a, let's see, and that is asked by Preston. Really quick here, where's the masking menu? I literally never go in here. There is an option in here for blurring your mask. What that does is blurs it both directions, but if you just control click on your mesh, it'll only blur it one direction, and if you have, you will have to flip it the other way and blur it the opposite direction as well, so it's blurred both ways. So just control clicking after you've masked something off. I prefer to do it this way, just because then I can have a little bit more control over it. And you can control click and control alt click. Control click softens, control alt click hardens your mask. So that is the shortcut for that. Perspective settings. If you alt-click on anything in ZBrush, it'll open up the menu for it. Similarly, it will also close it. So alt-click on perspective, and you can see my perspective settings are just the default of 50. Depends what I'm working on. If for something like this, it's fine to just like throw it on 50. I don't even have perspective on right now, which is fine. But if I'm working on maybe a face, a portrait, I might make it a little bit higher, maybe like 120 or so. It's essentially kind of faking your focal length for a camera, so it's not accurate, but it's pretty close. So you'll have to play with it and find something that works with what you're doing. But if it doesn't look good out of perspective, it's probably not going to look good in perspective either. I definitely switch back and forth between the two quite a lot. Alright, so just some quick rough cleanup here as I'm trying to figure out how we're going to do this and connect this. This angle is so extreme. I think what needs to happen, a little bit more bent forward. Try not to move this in space, because I have it in a pretty good alignment here with our character and our reference there. If anything, it could maybe come in a little bit more, but really it's not the end of the world. So this kind of rotation for the hand is absolutely possible. You know, I can do it with mine. Plus, it's down here. We're doing the exact same move. So pretty similar. In terms of the twist there, plus that, I think we're good on that rogue. So let's go ahead and try to merge these together and get this looking a little bit better. Keep turning on the wrong hand. I'm gonna shift that up my chain there. So let's just, actually, I have a poly group here, so we can just control click, select that very quickly, and rotate that up. And I don't need to align this perfectly, I just need to align this good enough so that once I dynamesh these together, they start working. This area right here, it's just because of the angle of the arm. I think if we rotate that, I think we'll be good. So let's redo this move here. I don't have polygroups set up for the different segments of my arm here, so I'm going to have to manually do this. Doesn't need to be crazy. Just want to rotate in a little bit more. I'll have to clean up this area for sure, as there's quite a bit that's off alignment there. And a lot of junk that needs to be cleaned up. Let's see. Just our wrist into position. I'm more so just using the move brush and masking here. And in terms of some of the stuff that's happening here with how dirty that's getting, that's okay. What I'm more concerned about is kind of this area, as it's starting to warp quite a bit towards that side. So I just want to try to get that back into position. Music is too loud. Thank you. I had it, people were saying it was fine before. It's probably just this particular song. Let me try turning that down. It's so hard to, hold on a sec. It's so hard to adjust this volume. It's literally on 5% right now. I'm using Pretzel for audio. So like I'm sitting here clicking and maybe I can do it better with my pen. Yeah, there we go. So 5%. We'll keep it on 5% for now. It's pretty low. But I have to keep everything on one audio track while streaming. It's an annoying setup. Doesn't allow for as much control over your audio as when you are recording. Let's just, might just delete that. I think that's gonna be easier. Try to align that some. And after some blending, that'll be looking just fine. Just turn it off. The sound of the fan is great. I don't think the fan's very loud. but also it's like 90 degrees outside, so the fan's staying on. Do some more tweaking to that area later. I just want to get that lined up properly. We have a lot of issues there. I'll probably split it out to parts. So down here, let's go look at our other hand. I still don't have this one connected down here. Might be able to rotate that one a little bit more. I just have it blended in, so the way that we're going to do this is we're going to slice off part of the wrist here, duplicate it, and start blending it in a little bit more to the hand. So we've got our angles pretty good down here. There are some other stuff that little things that I want to tweak, get it to a little bit of a higher level, and get it feeling more like our hands, get the weight on there a little bit better. But first, let's get this hand to an appropriate level as well. So we're going to do the same thing, duplicate, grab our wrist, delete hidden, it's fine, and go ahead and merge these together. And with a quick Dynamesh, we still have our polygroup saved. ZBrush can remember one of two things when Dynameshing: your polygroup data or your polypaint data. We don't really need the polygroups here, but I would maybe like to keep them for my fingers, so I can turn off my line so you can see some of that. Helps guide ZRemesher a little bit. And that's pretty much the only reason they're there right now. So just adding in some volume here. Can do another quick Dynamesh to help all these weird holes and weird geometry we got going on. A little bit of move brush. Start filling this form out. Trying to rotate around a lot right now. Just fill in the silhouette. Get that looking nice and clean. Doesn't really matter if we're being too dirty here. It'll be easy to clean up. And getting a little bit too much of a bump down there. Start to blend that a little bit better. I'm using the Trim Dynamic brush right now. There's a lot of different trim brushes, even brushes that aren't necessarily called trim brushes, like the H Polish brush, which is used for hard surface stuff, but I mean, I don't know. In terms of hard surface sculpting in ZBrush, I would much rather just Z-model something than a lot of the time using the H Polish brush. It's just a little bit of a better way to get more clean forms here. So we're at a pretty high Dynamesh resolution just because I don't want to lose most of the form in my hand. There's still a couple of lines I want to clean up before we jump into ZRemesher. Clean up the plane change here. Clean up this wrist transition as well. Move our light around so that we can kind of see how this is looking. Try to work on that plane change a little bit more. And when sculpting hands, as you guys probably saw earlier, I like to look at my own just to see, for reference of course, and then for what's actually possible in terms of movement, as this is not a great reference in terms of what's actually going to be possible. Unfortunately, we have to make it look good from all angles, instead of just one, so we can't push certain things quite as far. Which is the way that 2D artists cheat. We can also cheat a little bit in 3D, just not quite as much. Let's polygroup all this together so that, so that I can do a new polygroup. Maybe even slice some of this to get a really clean line. I don't know. I like to use the slice curve brush to get really clean lines for stuff. Sometimes it's hard and hard to get that in something like this. It's also getting pretty thin there. I'll have to play with that. Let me see what that's looking like. That's actually pretty good. That worked better than expected. So let's do a quick remesh on this so we can clean it up at a lower res and start moving things around. So ZRemesh at about 5K, keep groups is on, and then we can project it back on up there. What do you think about the Sculptress tool, Sculptress Pro? I'm not a huge fan of it. I don't use it very often. I don't use it at all, really. Maybe if I want to like doodle or something like that, but I don't use it in my workflow, so it's not much use to me. I think it's a cool tool still, though. I don't need it. Subdivide and reproject up through here. And let it lag for a minute. Delete our Dynameshed piece, and then kind of go through here and clean some of this up more. So at a lower resolution, it's a lot easier to move some of this stuff around and make these bigger changes. I'm not going to need most of this wrist either, so I'll probably end up, smoothing it out or something like that. Try to maybe get a little bit more thickness here towards the bottom. Let's try moving this in as well. It's just very long, and I'm getting this swoop that I don't want. I want this change in this plane change here. I want it to be more drastic than what I have right now. I don't necessarily have to move too much around. I should be able to just slide part of this palm back and get a little bit more of a hit there. And we might need to do something similar to our other hand as well. So we're definitely gonna have to do some more cleanup around here, but that's totally fine. With our poly groups, it does make it a little bit easier to kind of pick and choose where we want to select, and then get in here and sculpt on some of this stuff without affecting other areas too much. I think we have a nice kind of plane change on the side of the hand there. I'd like to retain that as best as I can. And while I'm going through here, cleaning everything up, I'm just trying to look at my silhouette, rotate around. You can see that we're getting a lot nicer break there, transitioning from the wrist to the bottom of the hand. That line needs to be shifted. Our wrist is just, or the hand is getting a little bit too fat right around that point. So kind of nudging it down. Not sure why I can't select my poly group there. It's being strange. There we go. All right. Much better. Still a long way to go in terms of posing and everything else here, but now that we kind of got the wrist in the right place, it's all downhill from here. Not really. I want to make sure everything's looking good before we start doing anything with the fingers. And I'm just stepping up and down through my subdivs pretty quickly depending on how big of an effect I want to have. And then, you know, stepping up through, smoothing some stuff out. If you look here, we're still getting this really crappy transition, that dip in there. That's what I'm looking to avoid. So let's see here how we can kind of correct that. Try to build up some more form around here. Marco, welcome to the stream, man. The reason I'm laughing is because I thought that said, "Hello, Ben, I love you." Which, you know, Marco, I love you too, man. But it doesn't say that. It says, "I love your streams." Either way, Marco, I love you. I love all of you. And Hudaman's here too. And how's the stream looking on you guys' end? If anybody knows why YouTube likes to tell me that my stream, what, health? Is that what it's called? Stream health? They'll just be like, hey, your stream health is in the red, it's bad. I don't know why it does that. And I haven't found anything online. So if any of you guys know what causes that, I think, like, I'm watching it, it's fine, it's working. YouTube's just like, hey, your stream health, it's unhealthy, it's bad, you're a bad streamer. Which I know, but like the quality of the stream should be fine. Alright, I think, oh, I like that. I like that plane change. I kind of want to get that more so in this side too, if I can. But that's looking pretty smooth there. Really nice. I dig it. I dig that line. Could use some more cleanup, but I don't want to spend forever on just that. I want to get to our fingers and posing. Posing fingers is always a blast. And by blast, I mean one of the worst things you can do here in ZBrush. I hate sculpting hands so much. It just feels like such a waste of time. It takes so much time to sculpt hands, and they're looked at for like 30 seconds, if that. Like, yep, good hands, or nope, bad hands, and then it's like, on to the next thing. Which is kind of how the whole art process works for everything, not just hands. But alright, so we gotta pose some fingies. And, oh boy, we got some noodles. We got some noodles going on. Let me open this up. And looking at our noodles. Oh boy. Yeah, so these things are interesting and also completely different than these fingers. These have their own problems that I will not mention again, but up here, looking at this hand, so probably what I'm going to do is pose them in such a way, this one's actually pretty close to what we already have, our thumb. Just get like a first bend in here, and I'm not going to make them quite as noodly as this, but that second bend there, I'm probably going to keep pretty straight on most of these. Maybe try to add a slight curve like what's going on here, but I don't want it to get too far away from my other hand. I want it to be similar. So let's try this. Our thumb needs to be fatter. Faux show. Let's get in here, move, back face, masking, thicken up that thumb. Probably pull in a little bit along here. I think the hand could be a little bit shorter, or actually, I think the thing that's throwing me off is the bend in the fingers. We'll have to try to get that in there. So the way, if you open and close your hand, for the most part, when you open and close your hand, it starts on your smallest finger, so your pinky. So if you're making a fist and transitioning between that, your pinky is always going to be the first to close, last to open. So your hand is kind of going to close and open like that. So do 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 do. That's an exaggerated version of it, but if you're sculpting a hand that's kind of in a neutral pose, if you just relax your hand, your smaller fingers will start to curl in on themselves as they're in rest pose. If you can see my awkward hand. So anything in between there, we kind of want to follow that rule, and this person has obviously followed that rule as well. So as we go through posing here, we can use our poly groups and start to get our bend in here. The index finger looks like it's almost going backwards. I'm trying to figure out how I can make this pose with my own hand so I can actually sculpt it. Anything I've ever sculpted, I have probably got down in that pose before. So I've definitely been in this pose before. You have to, it's very helpful. You have to do it when you're completely alone now. You can't let anybody see you. So a little slight bend here on the middle finger. I'm just starting to get these initial bends. Ring finger next. We'll soften on the mask, rotate with our transpose tool, more so than our middle finger. I want to be careful that I'm not, rotating this too far to one side. It looks like these are pretty equidistant in terms of spacing. And let's try to base out our pinky here, get that initial pose, close pretty far. So just kind of looking at my reference, gauging these initial bends. I could probably push this one a little bit further for index. So just kind of looking at this from a profile. Got a nice arc going on there. But of course, now we need to start bending this from our first digit. And I have the knuckles kind of blocked in here a little bit. For all of these, I'm going to have to bend in this second digit. So I think I'm going to do that first. And then we'll look at making the larger bends. And I don't have additional poly groups for these fingers, but I have found in the past that that can be pretty helpful while you're working on fingers. So if you want to like polygroup the tips or polygroup each segment of your finger, I find that that can be pretty helpful too. And make sure you're rotating around your character a lot, or in this case I guess your hand, because I end up rotating stuff in stupid ways all the time. And it's okay that this stuff is getting a little messed up. It's just how it's gonna be. I'll just fix it after the fact. Doing some sculpt overs. And I'm gonna have to make quite a few changes here. Hands are always so annoying just to rotate around, which is why I don't keep perspective on while I'm working on these. It's really hard to rotate around stuff while you're zoomed in super close. 12 people watching and only 4 likes. That's okay. I don't think likes do anything. If you're here and you're watching, even if you're hovering in the background, I appreciate y'all the same. Just give me somebody to talk to, so I'm not all alone. Alright, now for the big bends, the big benders in our fingers. I'm going to try this at a low res first. You can see it's obviously messing some stuff up there. Not a big deal. Trying to find this angle. I actually think that's pretty close. Let's leave that for now and come back to it. Start on our next finger. At least I have polygroups that can make a little bit of a difference here, and I can hide some fingers that get in the way. I would trade friends for your skills. Well, I would not recommend telling your friends that. Ironically, that's kind of what you have to do to get better at some of this stuff. You have to trade a lot of your time, and I guess technically you kind of are trading friends. Wow. Way to bring us into a low place here. Yeah, I mean, everybody's got to make sacrifices for certain things, but it's all part of the process. Everybody who's ever, you know, gotten good at anything. Oh crap, didn't mean to do that. Let's see here, real quick. There we go. Anybody who's ever gotten good at anything, you know, has had to put in a crap ton of time. The 10,000 hour rule, which I'm sure a lot of you have heard of, is, you know, absolute BS. It's a lot more than that, depending on what you're trying to do. That's kind of just a way to put it in perspective, though, and depending on what you're trying to do, it could definitely be a lot more. So that's kind of the base rotation for the fingers. Now I can kind of start looking here at some of this stuff. I think our index finger angle is pretty close. I want to do some more rotation here to the side. A little bit straighter on the silhouette there. Maybe back a little bit more. I don't know. Actually, I think that's pretty good. Middle finger, I'll have to do some softening to that second segment. Same here. I'm gonna rotate this one up a little bit more. And and rotate our pinky down. Some more. Stop! Do what I say. Do what I want you to do. Got some gnarly twisting going on there. Alright, so that's kind of a base. Let's just see. Nah. I think we need to do some more stuff here to get this to read a little bit better from the front, as this in silhouette is not looking super great. Kind of depends what angle we look at this from. But the main problem right now in our hand that I can see is all our fingers are straight on, which is not a natural pose. We want to get a little bit of that arc in there. So going from index to pinky, there's a slight arc in our hand, and we want to get that to be more present. The reason it's flat and straight is because on this hand it is going to be a little bit more flat and straight because there's compression happening and tension on those fingers. Let's see. We can create our own friends. It's just sculpt our friends, that's right. All my friends are 3D. That's why I'm not good at anything. Feels bad, man. Yeah. 3D friends for the win, for sure. Wow. This has got... Welcome to my depressing ZBrush stream, everyone. We can all be friends here, though. We can all be 3D friends. Alright, let's try to get a little bit of this twist, rotation going on. Oh boy. That's gnarly as well. A lot of gnarly things going on here in our fingers. Not a big deal. We'll look at those more later. I'm using a giant move brush, and I'm gonna warp some stuff in my fingers a little bit by doing this, but it is okay. I'd rather focus on getting this larger shape and worry about messing up my fingers. I can always fix my fingers, but I need to fix the bigger stuff first. So never be afraid to kinda take a step back, and even though you're on maybe like stage 3 and you're thinking about adding details, there might be something that's wrong at your, your base level or your secondary form stage. We got things wrong at every level right now, though. So we need some cleanup. Clean up in every aisle. Clean up in every aisle right now. So I want to get a little bit of this arc that we're kind of seeing in that second digit. The first one, I'm gonna want this little bit of a hard turn. We're gonna have to clean up some of these transitions for sure. And then the second one, I want it to be a little bit more of a gradual turn. So for our fingers, a little bit like hard hit, and then, a nice arc. Wow, that silhouette though. That's a nice finger, huh? I'll just plop that right on there. Same with the knuckles. We're gonna have to clean up some of this stuff after we've done our bending here. Resculpting our knuckles and everything else. We want to avoid stuff like what we're seeing here. That kind of rough surface. Start to work on this. And I'm gonna do a re-dynamesh here in a little bit. Get yourself Epic Pen. It will help you draw on the screen fast, and it's free. Really good for tutorials and teaching. Epic Pen. I'm assuming that's software. Oh, for this kind of thing. But it's so nice in ZBrush when I can just, you know, do stuff. That's what I was trying to do. I did a very bad job though. Epic Pen, I will definitely look into it. Sounds nifty. It's not something that I do super often, but it sounds like something that would definitely come in handy. Alright. So let's go ahead and just re-dynamesh some of this stuff now that we're kind of moving some things around in our fingers. Getting nice and dirty. Getting a little... There we go, that's better. Stuff we want to avoid is what actually happened here on this first digit. This isn't super bad, but just the connection point right there. If we start to soften that out more and more and more, we start to get this nasty little arc in there. For the most part, we want to avoid that stuff. You can hide a lot of it, and typically I do by doing something like that and getting a nice, clean, sharp point. Move the back face mask into itself. But you got to be careful that if you go in there and smooth some stuff, it can end up getting really dirty really quick. So right now I'm just kind of focusing on plane changes between my major landmarks, major bony landmarks for the most part, namely the knuckles, and I want to make sure that that arc that I'm trying to get in there is reading from all sorts of different angles here. And then I want to work on knocking back some of the transition that we have in that second digit of our fingers. So kind of just using my pinch brush, getting a really hard plane change there. And I'm probably going to do the same thing up here to our fingers. For stuff on the knuckles, typically what I like to do is I'll like do a hard pinch or something, and then maybe start to plane some stuff out with one of my trim brushes. So from the side here, we can start to get a pretty decent plane break. I want to get a little bit of this concavity on top of the fingers, at least for this first digit, and I think in our second one we're going to want to alleviate that almost completely and actually get a little bit of a convexity there. But for our first one I want to get a slight convexity, but I don't want to push it so far that it looks skeletal, which it's really easy to kind of go overboard on that sort of thing. You have a pen and it is epic. Epic, epic pen, epic. Very nice. Pen, pineapple, apple pen. I gotcha. I know yo memes. Can't meme on me. Actually, you probably can. I'm very out of touch with the internet culture anymore. Alright, so again, this second digit is where I'm wanting to almost completely remove that transition and have it be more of a soft transition between these digits. So using my trim brush, holding Alt on the underside there can help to add some form, and the reverse on the other side to kind of knock it back. Flatten out that plane, and I will round out this curve to get that convex surface that I was talking about. once I remesh and get a little bit of a lower subdiv there, so that I can make some bigger form changes. But let's go ahead and step back here. By the way, if you guys don't use solo mode a lot, I use it all of the time. It's very helpful. What I've done is I've set a hotkey for that, and it just makes it really nice to kind of pop back and forth between that while I'm sculpting. Very good stuff. We want to stretch our thumb out some more. Try to get that as well. I'm going to be looking at that here in a moment. Let's go ahead and remesh so that now that we've kind of fixed some of this junk, some more. Might be able to just push this in really quick. Without messing up my silhouette too much. Move backface masking, and I'm just trying to look at this at a slightly less than perpendicular angle to kind of move that in there. And then I might be able to trim some of that out. And Dynamesh it, and we'll merge it all together. That's fine. I think that worked pretty well. I will kind of mess with that arc a little bit more in a lower resolution. Alright, let's get some lower poly topology in here. The internet culture is out of touch with the internet culture. Yes, yes it is. It has been for a while. I remember when meme used to mean rage comic. When I was in high school, that was like pretty much all there was. It's like rage comics. That was the thing. Let's close Holzer real quick. Got some nasty remesh going on there. Alright, now let's start cleaning up some of these arcs. And some of this kind of stuff as well. I'll have to probably soften that and then kind of repinch it and then work on getting sold of that. Some of these transitional areas, this one isn't quite as bad. What I'm gonna do here. I want to try to line that up fairly well. It was a little off center, similar to what I had going on with my elbow crease on my arm. And then for something up here, what I'm thinking is really kind of try to push this a bit more. I don't want to get quite as noodly as we have going on in our concept, but a little bit of that arc I don't think will look too bad. I love the select lasso, but it has this stupid property where it wants to select edge loops, and that's what you just saw there. It's very annoying. And I wish it didn't do that. Literally the only reason I use the select rectangle is because it will select polygroups no matter where you click on them. But I guess you need some tool if you want to. The select edge loop thing, it's kind of deprecated. It's not really used or useful anymore, I would say. I have never ever wanted to select an edge loop with the selection lasso tool. Never. If I want to select an edge loop for any reason, I can use ZModeler, and I would never do it on something this high poly. God, I don't know. I literally can't think of a single reason why I would want to use that. Alright, so playing with the silhouette a little bit more, let's look more at our other fingers, and we can maybe get them in a similar state. The good old memes. Back in my day, we used to meme uphill in the snow, both ways. That's right. An old memer. Nobody said meme in the flesh space, in the real world. Nobody knew how to say it. Maybe that was the main problem. That's more of what I'm looking for. I still want a little bit of that arc in there from the knuckle. Just for the most part though, I want it to be pretty smooth. So a little bit raised up maybe along there. I think that looks pretty good. Obviously some issues here as we round out. The thickness isn't quite as uniform as it could be. Quick save, I love you, but sometimes you're annoying. Finger sculpting. As terrible as it is to do, I can't imagine it is much better to watch. So thank you. Thank you for watching me boringly sculpt fingers and hanging out. Let's see. Probably for separating two parts faster, like the arm and torso. Yeah, but like it's the select lasso, so you can just like do that, and then oh, there you go. Got a selected edge loop. I don't know. Maybe. Maybe. It's not how I would do it. So, a little bit of that bend, slight hit up top. I'll probably define that a little bit more. Let me go ahead and continue here and get the pinky. Trim a little bit of the side here. Let's see. So some people, no, someone, I can't remember who, was mentioning during the last live stream. I don't remember how it got brought up, but we were talking about the possibility of doing some mentorships, and if you guys are on the ZBrush Discord channel or following me on YouTube, you saw me asking some people about that. The main concern with me trying to do something like that is just making sure that enough people would be interested in it. I think it would be fun to do. It's definitely something that I think there's a need for. Personally, I think it's the best way to kind of learn for this kind of field. there's just so much, and a lot of the time you can kind of feel lost and not know what to do next or where to go. And I think having someone that's been there before kind of shed some light in some certain areas. And what I would like to do with it, maybe if I do something like that, is maybe do some like sculpt overs, some one-on-one session where I could do like a sculpt over or something like that, and then answer as many questions as I possibly can during that time. Then give some actionables on the new community tab thing, other than through like video content and like a comment. So the community channel is great. I don't know what took them so long to do that, but I've been waiting for something like that for a very long time, and it's nice to just be able to put like quick text or anything like that in there. Do we have... We got some weird projection junk going on in the corners there. I'll show you guys how to get rid of that stuff, depending on how bad it is. It doesn't look that terrible. Really, we can smooth most of that in and then clean it up through probably sculpt in there with a damn standard or something. I don't know. We'll take a look at it in a minute. I want to try to get a little bit more thickness in some of these fingers as well. But we're starting to get that basic kind of block out shape. I also want to add a little bit more twist to these fingers and get them going the right direction. I want the pinky going more this way, kind of all pointing towards the middle of my hand, or middle of my backside of my palm. Thanks for the great stuff. Gotta go now. See you soon. No problem, man. Thanks for stopping in and hanging out. I will hopefully see you in the next stream or over on our Discord channel for sure. We'll always see you there. I would love to. I do hard surfaces, but it's hard to get into organic and characters. I'd like to hear more about it. Well, like I said, I was just kind of asking about it the other day because I don't remember, Marco, if you were one of the people that brought it up. But yeah, I don't know. It's just kind of an idea right now. Nothing solid. It's so hard for me to talk and sculpt at the same time. If I go back and watch one of my streams, I'm like, I don't remember saying any of this. So I'm just kind of on autopilot a lot of the time, which isn't good for my sculpting. I try to focus more here. But yeah, I don't know. Some of the ideas, like I said, would probably be set up a meeting, do something like an hour-long one-on-one, of course. I think that's the most effective. And then from there you could send me like a Z-tool or something like that. I could do a sculpt over, like I mentioned, and give you some actionable steps, maybe give you some homework if you want homework. Not necessarily homework, but stuff that you can actually improve on and work on pretty easily. Said back when I was learning ZBrush and like really getting into things, I would have killed for a mentorship of some kind. Somebody somebody said I would trade friends to sculpt like you. I don't remember who that was. Kai Eon Games, I think, if I'm saying that correctly. Probably not. Alright, so what do we got? We've been noodling slightly. Not really. I've been kind of cleaning up a lot of stuff here slowly but surely. Trying to hit all these areas, get all these plane breaks, transitional areas here in our fingers. Fingers are such a pain, like I said. They take such a long time to do. But really just focusing on my plane breaks and these major shapes is the most important part of this to me. Not just right now, but you know, in general. It's going to be the most important thing for getting the character of this hand. Hands are tough. Hands is tough. Alright, let's do some rotation here with our transpose tool. Make sure we line that up with our finger a little bit better. Rotate in. And let's also get a little bit more bend up towards our knuckles. Oops. Try to get a little bit more of that gesture in there. Looking right here. Looking better. Add a little bit of rotation here to our ring finger. I kind of have to infer a lot going off of this reference just because it is so stylistic. It's trying to make sure that's looking good from, you know, every angle here, which is not an easy thing to do. I want to rotate, I think, my entire hand here a little bit. Things are pushed just so far, even here. It's like there's a lot of stretching going on. So I want to get that feeling without breaking it completely. And of course, you know, like, look at your own hand, like I said, for stuff like this. Figure out what's actually possible. If you're unsure. Really, it's just a lot of back and forth between me trying something, trying to fit the silhouette, and trying to then fix it from other angles as it kind of mangles some stuff together. Oh, man. Let's see here. All right. So I have a little bit of a plane change in here. I can soften this off, or out, really. It's very strong right now. And it's causing issues back here on the wrist. It's like giving it this very sharp angle of a connection right there. And I want that to be more rounded. If you do something like soften a crease like that, what ends up happening is you go from something like that sharp angle, to, you know, this rounded out junk. That's really what you want to avoid. So for something like this, I want to try to look at this from a perpendicular to kind of this crease here. Try to line this up a little bit better, and then maybe hit it a little bit with a pinch, a small, tight pinch brush. Also want to rotate around, make sure that it's not losing its form here at other angles. Try to pinch this in a little bit too, to get some of that back. Still some areas where it's not super clean. Doesn't need to be perfect right now. It's good enough though. Hudaman has got to head out. No worries, man. Thank you for stopping in. Always good to see the Hud boy. Have to go home. I think have to go home from work. I thought it said have to go home for work. I forgot that Hudaman likes to sneak in live streams while he's working. Tisk, tisk, tisk. No judgment here. Slight judgment. Maybe a lot. We still love you though. What is going on with our hand? We need to flatten out some parts of this. Clean up some of these transitional areas on our palm. We have a pretty good shape overall, but I think we just need to kind of clean up some of these planes and redefine this stuff and get it in a really good place. So let's hide some fingers. Oops. I'll keep the thumb there for now. Let's see. Trying to get this line to be a little bit more straight, kind of like what we see up here. Even little stuff like this, I want it to be accurate to the concept. To kind of figure out what that line is trying to tell me. I think it can also move up, or actually, in fact, I think this instead can move down. Try to shorten this some. So what this line is telling me is kind of the line right below your knuckle on your palm. And there's, you know, normally like a line right here as well between these two digits. If you look at your own hand, you can kind of probably see a crease that's, I mean, everybody's hand is different, but for the most part, it should probably flow something like that. Should look somewhat similar. But I think we're just going to kind of keep it the way we have it, the way it is in the concept. We might be able to like do a slight kind of line in there or something to allude to that. So I want to define these planes, or the plane of the knuckles here, a little bit better. Fill in some of this. We're starting to get a little bit too rounded there. One thing that I like to do sometimes, as long as you have double on, so you can see back face polygons, if you look at the cross section of something, it can kind of help you figure out what the surface is doing a little bit. So a little bit of a flow there, and if we chop off here, kind of see what's going on here, that angle. So I'm looking over here then, pushing in a little bit. It's kind of happening because of, from our thumb, this buildup that we have going on here, as that flows into the fingers there, it keeps some of that form. So let's try to clean that up a little. It'll probably help us this transition. Oops. Meant to do Shift D instead of Control Z, undoing some stuff. Alright, so a lot of cleanup here. A lot of different stuff. I just want to take another step back and see how things are looking. For sure, the silhouette of our hand, from the angle that we have it kind of facing right now, I don't want to rotate it forward too much more, but I think we can rotate our fingers to be a little bit more spread out to kind of get this look that we have here. So I think straightening some of this stuff will help in that. So I think we got a little bit too much bend, a little bit too much of a curve, so that front view we can't really see everything that's going on. There's also, if you look at these fingers, they're kind of jutting out here to the left pretty hard, whereas our palm is almost directly facing the camera. Those fingers are like jutted out to the side. So that's all for the purpose of the silhouette of the hand there. Like I said, a lot of this stuff is pushed really far, so we're gonna have to find a way to make it possible, and we'll see what we can do. Need something to keep my brain from melting amidst all the coding. Yes, I can believe it. It's probably hard to listen to audio though while programming. Pretty much all my friends are programmers, and I was going for a CS degree as well at first, then switched over. Just because I'm very analytically minded, felt like it was something, and I like computers and everything, so I used one a lot, all day, every day. So seemed like the right thing to do. But yes, I can't imagine listening to audio of someone talking while trying to code. Sounds terrible. Got a pretty crappy connection down here. In unrelated news, I got to fix my toilet today, so that was fun. What about you guys? You guys do anything fun today? My toilet flush lever, it broke. It snapped. So I had to go buy a new one and figure out how that works. That was a fun time. Did anybody else do anything fun? Did anybody else fix a toilet today? That's what I want to know. Someone in the world fixed a toilet today that was not a plumber. I guarantee it. I think I'm just going to try to straighten these out. I added a little bit of that bend in there. I think maybe we straighten some of this out some more. Try to really push that silhouette. Nobody fixed the toilet today. Nobody had anything interesting happen. Well, that's disappointing. You guys gotta look on the bright side. Find those cool little things that happen every day. Like fixing a toilet. Let's get some. Let's rotate. Whoops. Please select that. Thank you. Let's rotate up here. Up, up, up. So I'm going to focus on getting this silhouette a little bit better from the front view specifically. Tough stuff, for sure. I think my fingers can be a little bit fatter as well. One thing that I thought was interesting was down here in this concept, it looks like the fingers get a little bit fatter as they come out from the root of the knuckle. I'm kind of getting that vibe here as well. they just kind of taper off towards the end though, where these look a little bit more squared. It's hard to read all this stuff, but it's kind of the feeling that I'm getting. So I might try to fatten these fingers up as they come out a little bit more too. I fixed the toilet. I fixed my mother-in-law. I've never heard mom-in-law. That sounds strange. I don't know. Is that a non-American saying, mom-in-law? That's fun. Sounds like a good day. Probably a little bit more difficult than my toilet job. But I don't know. Maybe not. So what I was thinking that I could do, essentially, maybe just do this manually with move back face masking to kind of trying to thicken these out so there's a little bit of taper there. I think that's maybe good, at least for kind of a test run here to see how this looks. Because if I push it too far, it might end up looking really weird. Kind of toady, like a frog's hand. I don't want that. But I do want a little bit of that. Stupid perspective. I want a little bit of that thick to thin there. But kind of reversed from what you would normally expect. And because these are kind of pressed against the ground, that's kind of why they're a little bit more flat, but maybe get a little bit more thickness in here towards the tip. A thicker tip. Still a lot of cleanup that I need to do on this hand as well. I think the other hand is about in the same place as this one, where I have this one right now. So I can kind of jump back and forth between the two, try to play with some of this stuff. I also need to, I meant to fatten up my thumb earlier and never did. Thicken it up. No, it was just dirty. Just as dirty. It was a dirty job. What's that dude's name? Mike something? I don't remember. VFX Lord says, love it so far, but he's gotta go. No worries. Thanks for stopping in and saying hey. Just as dirty. That's unfortunate. Very unfortunate. My job wasn't really dirty because it was all up top, you know. Plus, I like to keep a clean toilet. I'm trying to add this thickness. I don't know how it's gonna look. It might read better as a whole from a distance, but kind of up close here it might be pushed a little bit too far. I don't know. Let's see. Let's see what kind of read we start getting on this stuff. Maybe a little too far on the pinky. Sculpting asymmetrically is really tough. It's really annoying. I don't like to complain, but it sucks. It really does. just gonna extend that angle a little bit more. So when stretching out your thumb, really the extent of that is going to be about 90 degrees. I mean, if you bend it forward, you might, from an angle, it might appear like it has more of a bend than 90 degrees, but really like, for the most part, you're not going to be able to bend that back too much further along that axis, a straight on axis. So we're kind of at the limits there, but by bending forward, we might be able to kind of get that feeling a little bit more. I'm not sure. So a little bit forward and then a little bit back on the thumb. Everybody's got different flexibility in their fingers. Like, for instance, my thumbs bend back pretty far here without even trying to force it. I think a lot of people are similar, but I've also seen people that can't bend their thumb past, you know, straight up and down. I think it just kind of depends. But we will go with a more flexible thumb just because it kind of helps us fit our silhouette more, of course. And we could definitely use some more volume. Man, that's it's pushed so far there. It's painful to kind of look at. I don't want to break things. Not completely. I try to push things until they break and then, you know, take them back a little bit. Sounds like a Pokemon remix right now, like Elite Four kind of music. Adverse by Tiasu. Interesting. Side Effects says hello everyone. Welcome to the stream. Glad to have you here. We're working on some pretty crazy hands right now. And it's been quite a while since I've shown our full character, so I'll pop back to that here shortly. So, really, I kind of expected that I'd have to kind of re-sculpt a lot of this stuff, and I have already. Just because there's different shapes between each leg, different shapes between each arm, different shapes between each hand. They're just different. They're drawn that way on purpose. They're pushed super, super far. But that's why I chose this character, because I knew it would be a challenge, and asymmetrically it would be even harder. So I'm trying to push some of these shapes that I see, like in the silhouette of the palm, trying to get a little bit of that V kind of hit in there. Let's go ahead and take a step back, look at our whole body, and then we can, you know, look at our face as well here. Turn on perspective, see how things are coming along. So we got a little bit of a hero's pose going on. I've kind of merged a bunch of stuff together. There's still a lot of work that needs to happen on this body, but for the most part, we've got it all kind of blocked out and headed in the right direction. But let's go ahead and I guess take a look at our head next. Let's do this. My head is on a symmetrical axis right now so that I can sculpt on it symmetrically, make any changes that I want. Turn all that on. So it's not aligned with my body right now, so it looks pretty awkward if I turn those two on together. Body's being sculpted asymmetrically, head is being worked on symmetrically for the time being, but of course will be aligned and everything else once I am happy, a little bit more happy with it. So yeah, here's our face. I think we've got a lot of good stuff in here. There's some little changes that I want to make to like the jawline and just the silhouette as a whole. But in terms of facial features, I think we're pretty close. The eyes are not, you know, permanent or anything. Those are going to change later. But let's go ahead and head on back here to our body and keep working on our hands. But yeah, we're making progress. Every stream, every time I work on this, we get a little bit farther. You are only using subdiv, right? No Dynamesh? No, I use Dynamesh and subdivs simultaneously. When do you go from one to another? Thanks, awesome work. Appreciate it, Alessandro. Thank you. When do I go from one to another? That's a tough question. That's not to like, where is it? I talk about that in it's a hard question to answer because really it's just whenever you need Dynamesh or whenever you need low-res subdivs. And it's kind of a thing that you get a better feel of while you're sculpting. If you want to try to get a better feel for that, come hang out on the streams more, or if you want to follow along with like a full-length project, I have some links down in the description to my Gumroad, and there's that sculpting toys and collectibles tutorial that I have on there. That I think would be a really good example, or if you just want to kind of follow along here on stream and see how I'm kind of working with it. There's no like short answer to that question is what I'm trying to say. It's more of like right now, so I'm working with subdivs and polygroups, but you know, I've got an area in here where these fingers are coming together and creating this nasty connection point. So I might use Dynamesh to kind of clean up some stuff in there. It's really just, you know, whatever you need for that particular area. I'm starting to pinch in a lot along this geometry, which is fine. You know, I'm trying to define this plane change here, and that needs to happen. That's like a necessary repercussion of the tools that I'm using. And as I do that, it might get to a point where it's pushed and pulled and stretched too much. So we got a lot of pinching going in here. So I might Dynamesh and then remesh everything just to like clean up my topology flow. So that might be another reason why I did it. Like I said, it's really just on a per case basis, whatever I need at the time. And you get a little bit of a better feel the more practice you get. I am probably someone that jumps back and forth between the two a lot more than your standard user, I would think. But, you know, just based on the way that I sculpt, I like to sculpt a lot of stuff in separate parts and merge them together later. A little maquette kind of style. It's just kind of how I sculpt. But it works for me. Find out what works for you. I wouldn't necessarily, you know, copy everything I do. I have a lot of bad habits, I'm sure, but I don't know what they are. That's why they're bad habits. If I knew I was doing these things and I could be doing them a better way, I wouldn't do them. Or maybe I'm just stingy and, you know, I'm old man ZBrush stuck in my ways. That's probably not the case. Yusuf, I really love your approach to sculpting. You make sure to spend enough time getting the shapes to look really good. Thank you, appreciate it. I'd finish a sculpt in the amount of time you do a single stream. Well, I mean, I guess it kind of depends what you're sculpting, but also a much slower sculptor while streaming or recording anything and trying to talk at the same time. If I'm just sculpting, I'm probably like 2 or 3 times faster than this for sure. It's just hard to talk. I'm terrible at talking and sculpting at the same time. And sculpting at the same time. Yeah, it's tough. It's not easy. But yeah, if I was working on like a bust or something, I could probably knock out like a little speed sculpt in a couple hours for sure. But we're just focusing on hands, and if you want your hands to look really good, you spend the appropriate amount of time on them. So even if I wasn't streaming, I would spend a long time on these hands and really get some good forms in here. This is the kind of stuff that's really important, especially if you're working on something that's for production. So that area that I was talking about where we're getting some funky junk, I'll show you guys a way that we can kind of clean that up. I'm actually gonna clean up, I'm gonna do the same thing to 2 fingers here. Let's see, obviously exaggerating, but cheers, love how the sculpt is coming along so far. Thank you, appreciate it, man. And then Alessandra, what was your question? You're only using yeah, that's right. Alessandra asked if I was only using subdivs or Dynamesh and subdivs. I use both, and then he said, I asked because now I only have ZBrush Core and Dynamesh destroys my subdivs and then is a pain to pose. Thanks for the answer though. Yeah, no worries. So here, we're about to do a thing, so maybe this will be helpful for you. I don't use ZBrush Core, so I don't know about all the functionality in there, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these 2 fingers, I'm going to split these off into their own subtools here, and I'm going to Dynamesh this hand, like this. And then I'm just going to clean up this intersection. So Dynamesh destroys your subdivs. Yeah, that's what Dynamesh does. It retopos it's one of the retopology tools in ZBrush. It's auto topology. But the point of Dynamesh is to also, you know, do some booleans and some other stuff. It's really nice for that kind of stuff, nice and quick. So we'll look at using it for that, and then how we can get those subdivs back after using Dynamesh. So bouncing back and forth between the 2 is kind of what I was talking about there. So we just had subdivs, right? We don't have them anymore because we Dynameshed. And I'm gonna use Dynamesh to clean up this area around the finger. Clean up this area some more. And get a nice connection point there. Looks good enough. And then over here, I was noticing a little bit of the same thing, not quite as extreme. Really, it's not that extreme on either. I just added in a quick little subdiv so that I can get a little bit more resin there. Really, it's not necessary. Let me mask off there. Push in, clean up this connection point. And get that in a little bit of a better place. And then for our 2 fingers, what we're going to do with these is, of course, Dynamesh them, which will close holes for us. I'm just going to take this surface and extend it into our hand. And Dynamesh again. Clean this up. Whoops. Really doesn't need to be super clean or anything. And then the other one as well. Let me extend that down. You can even, you know, scale it in some if you want, so it kind of plugs in there a little bit better. Make sure that we're not having the same issue here in connecting to our finger, our other finger. So I want to avoid these super tight areas. And we'll be reconnecting these all. Now that we've kind of cleaned up our fingers a little bit. There's still some problem areas, but let's go ahead and merge down. Okay. Dynamesh. Let's kind of bridge that gap a little bit there. That's at 1.5. So let's take this big old move brush, scoot out, scoot out. Same thing over here. We'll call that good enough. Dynamesh those together. And you know, we still don't have subdivs, right? But we'll get those back in just a moment. I'm working on the inside of those polygons. It allows me to kind of pinch in there. Another way you can do something like that is mask off a little bit. Use your transpose tool and then pull in with the move activated. Kind of pull that area down. It's another quick little way you can do something like that. If you're looking to clean up little pinched areas. Alright, so we've kind of cleaned that up poorly. Rather quickly here. So what do we need next? We need to polygroup our fingers. It's messed up there. So this, give me this, and yeah. So I'm just gonna make that all one polygroup. Next, I am going to hide my hand. Get a little bit of a better connection here. Doesn't need to be perfect. Essentially, I just want to make sure that these are all individual so that I can run an auto groups on them. They're all different polygroups now. And now what we can do to get those subdivs back is just take our hand, duplicate it, go to ZRemesh or keep groups on ZRemesh, and then we'll have about 5K polys with those polygroups helping to inform our topology flow. And then we can project up after that's done and keep our detail, our definition that we sculpted at 1.4 million projected onto something with subdivs. So we got that. Subdivide once. We got these two visible. Click on project. You can see it projected that detail. Subdivide again. Project again. It will calculate. Project that detail, subdivide again, project again, it will then project that detail. You get the idea. I'll do one more subdivision without projecting, and I think that will put us in a little bit of a better place. One more subdiv, there we go. Delete that extra hand that we don't need anymore. And now we've kind of successfully cleaned up some of those areas, resculpted some stuff in Dynamesh, and now we can kind of keep going with subdivs here if we need to. Really, like I said, just a matter of what you need at the time. But yeah. It's kind of my workflow for jumping back and forth between those two. Let's see. Are you familiar with dynamic topology in Blender? If yes, is it similar to Dynamesh and ZBrush? No, it is not similar. I believe it's more similar to Sculptress Pro, which I'm not sure if that is in ZBrush Core or not. I think not. Not positive though. I wouldn't worry about it because I don't use Sculptress Pro. I'm not a huge fan. But if you're a fan of kind of dynamic topology in Blender, that might be more your speed. Alright. So after that quick little demonstration, I think we still need to do more work on this for sure. But I think that's going to be a good place to stop for tonight. So thank you guys. Thank you for coming and hanging out on the stream. I appreciate it. Appreciate y'all. One last sign off before I go. Make sure you guys go check out DDino on ArtStation. There's a link to their work down in the description. Awesome concept artists. Really, their stuff is super cool. Let's look at some more of it. Look how cool this stuff is. Look at Deadpool grabbing these people's butts. Isn't that fun? So he or she, I believe it's a he, likes Deadpool, which I like Deadpool too. I just recently watched Deadpool too. Cool stuff. And also there's a link down in the description to my Gumroad if you like this live stream, or if you like some of the other free content I produce. You'll definitely like some of this stuff as well. A lot higher quality. I put a lot more work into this. Got my brushes on here, got my sculpting clay materials that I use, as well as a few other things like my most recent course. We were kind of talking a little bit about some mentorships there for a little bit, and that might be something that's on there in the future. Not really sure yet. I guess we'll kind of find out. I'll let you guys know more about that as that develops. Mentorships as in kind of one-on-one stuff. So again, thank you guys for coming and hanging out. And I guess with that said, I'll see you in the next stream. Hopefully tomorrow. I'm not sure yet. I'll let you guys know. But until then, have a great night, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye now.